lovely dreamers, and welcome back to my channel. I have some Prosecco which I am going to share with you. Just a little bit. Chin chin. So, last week I uploaded the first episode of Tuesday Wine and Crime. I have my notes here today also. Tuesday's Wine and Crime is of course about true crime ASMR also, but I am going to present older cases or unsolved cases. Today's story is a very, very sad one, and I was so impressed. I have the bad habit of not judging but trusting people according to their look. I don't mean the clothes and stuff, the look on their face, if they seem kind or this shows on his or her face, I tend to trust that person. And today's story made me change my way of seeing things a little, and you will see for yourself why. So, I generally make all my videos not whispering, but I softly speak, the so-called soft-spoken. When I'm whispering like this, my voice is not very loud. So this is my whispering voice. This is my whispering voice, and this is my soft-spoken voice. So let me know, what do you prefer? Do you prefer me whispering these stories? Whispering? Or do you prefer the soft-spoken version? Please let me know. Please let me know. Okay? Let's get started. Find yourself a cozy spot. Pour yourself a glass of wine or milk or coffee or cup of tea. Whatever you want. Close your eyes and listen to the story. Today's story is a forgotten one. Not many remember it. It happened years ago. I don't know, I think everyone around knows that I start filming. It's very quiet. Very quiet. I prepare everything, and when I'm ready to film, my neighbor starts vacuuming. There are planes and helicopters in the air, trucks in the street. I don't know. Okay, so the story that I'm going to tell happened in 1951. Very difficult years for Italy. Many Italian families were extremely poor, and a lot of people emigrated to other countries back then. Let's go back in time to the 7th of September 1951. In a large apartment in a villa in Via Galilei in Bursto Arsizio. La domestica, the girl in the house, the au pair, how is this job called today? La domestica, the au pair, has just come back inside with the fresh milk, which she puts on the table in the big kitchen, and then she goes upstairs to her room to put back her black apron, her working uniform. She doesn't like to go outside wearing her uniform, so she changes every morning. Adele Nemo, the lady of the house, is waiting for her in the kitchen. The children are hungry, and she is waiting and waiting for the girl to come down from her room. And at a certain point, she calls her. She calls her because she needed her to make breakfast for the children. But there was no answer. Angry, the lady of the house climbs up to the girl's room looking for her. The little room was extremely tidy. Her suitcase was on the bed with her clothes very tightly packed in there. Her little sum of money, a little fortune for a girl like her, is sitting on top of the clothes. But she is nowhere to be found. Sylvia, au pair in the Nemo's family house, has just vanished. She disappeared without any trace, leaving behind everything that she owned. Sylvia is a beautiful, tall girl. She is 21 years old. Her name is Sylvia Daponte, and she was born in a poor family in Cesio Maggiore in Belluno province. Her parents are farmers. She and her sister needed to find jobs in other areas of the country, in other provinces, because back then Cesio Maggiore was a very poor village. The only option was to become a farmer. Her sister went to work in Zurich as a nanny, and she found work in Busto Arsizio, which is industrial town somewhere close to Milan. Many young women like Sylvia used to work as nannies or au pairs for the rich families in Italy. Most of them were not treated very well and got very poor salary and just used to sleep under the scale of the villa or in the attic. But Nemo family loved Sylvia and considered her as part of the family. The children were very fond of her. She had her own room and her salary was pretty good, so she did succeed to save some money, which she was planning to give to her poor parents. Sylvia was tall, was considered a robust girl. She was about 80 kilos. She had blonde hair and beautiful eyes, a little bit sad, but when she was walking in the street, people turned their heads to look at her, so she didn't pass by unnoticed. She was a hard-working girl. She did her job very, very well. So there was no reason for her to vanish just like so. The Nemo family was a rich family. She could afford the luxury of hiring a girl in the house to do a little bit of everything, from taking care of the children to preparing meals, serving and cleaning and so on, doing the shopping. They lived in a villa in which every member of the family had her own room with a huge living room and kitchen, so they were prosperous. The father worked as an executive for an airline company, an American airline company, and he was promoted, and they were about to move to Rome. And of course, they asked Sylvia to join them. And Sylvia was extremely excited about this because Rome was a dream city where she could meet her favorite actors just like so in the street. The opportunities were different, so she agreed to go, especially that she was also fond of the family. She was well paid and treated, and probably it might have been difficult to find a better job. And she asked for a little leave, a little vacation of 20 days just to go back in her village, in her town, to see her parents, to give them the savings, a little sum of money, to spend some time with them and then return to the Nemo family and go together, move to Rome all together. That was the plan. And on that morning of 7 September 1951, as I have told you, Sylvia went to buy milk, left the milk on the table, went upstairs to her room to change herself, and she vanished. Nemo family looked for her everywhere. They even asked the landlord, the owner of the house. It was a big villa, and half of the villa was occupied by the landlord, and in the other half the Nemo family lived, and they paid a rent for this. The old man, he was 70 years old, told them that he saw Sylvia going for milk. He saw her in the street, but that was the last time he saw her. They looked for her for hours, and finally they decided to go to the police. And the police didn't do too much at first, because Sylvia was young, and they supposed that either she eloped with someone or she changed her mind and didn't want to go to Rome and was afraid to tell the family, and just went to work for another family in another province or so. Or she could have just returned to her parents. But still, which girl works hard to save some money and lives wearing a black apron and slippers, leaving behind everything she owns? They contacted her parents and found out that she didn't return home, of course. A friend of hers said that Sylvia was very depressed and sad lately, and they started to imagine the worst. Maybe she was so sad and depressed that she decided to do a desperate act to take her own life, something like this. But still, she was nowhere. They couldn't find her anywhere. They looked everywhere, in every corner of the house, every corner of the town. She was nowhere to be found. Her sister came to help. She was also desperate to find Sylvia. She asked permission from the owner of the house to look for her. He gave her the keys, and her sister looked for Sylvia in the house from top to bottom, from the attic down to the basement, inspecting every corner. Sylvia was nowhere. A friend of Sylvia had a very strange dream of her. She dreamed Sylvia wearing a long white dress and holding a bouquet of white flowers, and the friend asked her, "Where are you going? Don't you know that everyone is looking for you? Where have you been?" And Sylvia answered, "Why are you looking for me? Why are you looking for me so far away? Don't you know that I have never left that house?" And the friend told her dream to Maria, Sylvia's sister. And they went back to the house and inspected that house again from top to bottom. They couldn't find anything. Sylvia has disappeared without a trace. Nemo family had to pack their things and move to Rome. But the lady of the house could never forget about her au pair and was very sad about this because she really wanted to know that Sylvia was alright. On the 20th of October, the family returns to Busto Arsizio to take the last packages, luggage and boxes they had left in there. They went down to the basement for the last time to burn some old things. And they needed to burn some old stuff and papers and boxes. The furnace, the boiler, everything, the heating system was placed in there. They also found an old Christmas tree. And the children wanted to take that Christmas tree with them also. So they went to collect that Christmas tree, which was in a corner of the basement next to some boxes. But when they went to take the Christmas tree, they found hidden between the boxes and covered by the Christmas tree the corpse of Sylvia. She seemed to be made of wax, but it wasn't the Sylvia that they used to know. From the car, which was 80 kilos, it remained only a skeleton, which probably weighed somewhere between 30 or 40 kilos. Extremely sad and also scared, terrified, they went directly to the police, and the police came again. And guess what? They first thought that Sylvia took her own life, that she was very depressed. Probably she didn't like the idea of moving so far away from her family, and she decided just to go and hide in a corner of the basement and refuse to eat, because of course an autopsy was performed and it was established that she died of starvation. They also speculated that she might have probably fainted because of the gas in the basement. She died in the bath. But this couldn't explain the fact that she seemed to be dead for not a very long time, for 2-3 days maximum, a week. And she was extremely skinny, a skeleton. But finally, Angelo Mongelli, the captain of Carabinieri police, for him everything seems a little bit suspicious, a little bit more, and he decided to investigate the other part of the house, the one in which Carlo Candiani, a kind man in his 70s, lived. He was very well known in town. He was grandfather. He had been married 2 times and widower twice. Very respected and loved in the community. He had his own table at the best cafe in town, and he was an amateur chemist. He was into pharmacology. He loved preparing potions and different medicine, to say so, using plants and other things. He had a whole lab in his house, which seems a little bit strange for Angelo Mongelli. Candiani used to spend most of his time preparing those potions, and he also claimed that he could heal himself of diabetes using only plant extracts and stuff like that. While searching the house, the police, it was very dusty. They were entered the room where it was dust everywhere, and there was a portion of the room where they could see a shape, and it was noticeable. They could tell that there was something there, something that had been recently removed and taken somewhere else. And they asked the owner of the house what was there, and he said nothing. It was nothing, just a box of books, which was very heavy, and I needed to call a friend to come and help me take it to the basement. Just a box of books. But still, they didn't believe him, and being interrogated for hours, he finally admitted that he really liked Sylvia. She was a nice girl, and they were kind, and he wanted to play a trick on her and scare her, so he hid and suddenly appeared in front of her and said boo. And Sylvia, instead of laughing, fainted, and he wasn't able to wake her up. So she was in a coma for 44 days, like some kind of sleep, and he fed her honey and milk during all this time, and seeing that she didn't wake up, he finally decided to place her in a box. So he put her in a box, closed the box, and carried the box with his friend, who thought that there were books in the box, carried the box in the basement. And after the girl had deceased, he just took her out of the box and placed her under that Christmas tree where she was later found by the Nemo family. But still, the captain didn't believe him. Sylvia was an extremely strong girl, very healthy. She was only 21. Girls like her don't faint just like so out of a joke and stay in a coma for 44 days. So they continued to interrogate the old man, and he finally confesses. He finally confesses that he was in love with the girl, that he loved her, seeing her around, going out to do the shoppings, coming back home. He followed her everywhere. He liked to look at her hidden behind the curtains, but that he had never had the courage to tell her about his feelings because the age difference was huge, and he was afraid that the girl and the people in town would make fun of him. But when he found out that the family were about to move, and that they were planning to take Sylvia with them, he couldn't accept the idea. He was so desperate that he followed Sylvia that morning, and when she got her out of her room in order to go downstairs and make breakfast for the family, he used a cotton ball to sedate her. I don't know if I am allowed to name the substances that he used. And then he carried her into his room. Where? And this part is extremely disturbing. I cannot believe that monster like this could exist, could be real. That monsters like this appear to be kind grandparents that take care of their grandsons and granddaughters, take their grandchildren to the park. He changed Sylvia into some kind of bambola, a doll, a life-sized doll with which he could do anything he wanted. They couldn't tell if Sylvia was abused in any way, but he found pleasure in treating her like a doll, combing her, dressing her up, keeping her in a state of coma, feeding her only milk and honey from time to time, or wine, some wine, sedating her again and again every time when the girl tended to wake up, and so that the healthy blonde-haired girl with big sad eyes and rosy cheeks, which weighed 80 kilos, turned into a skeleton of 30 kilos. And when the girl finally died of starvation, he placed her in that box, and carried her in the basement with the help of a friend who later on took his own life because he felt so guilty, although he didn't know at the time what he was carrying in that box. In April 1953, Candiani goes to trial. There was a huge case. You can imagine that a lot of people were waiting for the verdict outside. The old kind man, very respected, suddenly turned into a monster. The people in that town found that a monster lived among them without even knowing. Carlo Candiani is found guilty and condemned to serve 25 years in prison. But his lawyers appeal, and his sentence is reduced to 14 years. 14 years for killing a girl this way. She was so young and full of life, and he decided that he needed a doll to play with, to test his potions on. And he got only 14 years because the lawyers insisted that he confessed during interrogation. He confessed because he was stressed and pressed by the police, and that the girl decided to come and live with him by herself, that she wanted to live with him. Can you imagine? Carlo Candiani dies of a heart attack in prison in 1955. This is the horror hidden behind normality, hidden deep inside an ordinary old man. The poor Sylvia became a bambola, a puppet, a doll. was extremely impressed by this story, and I felt so sorry. I am that kind of person who likes to see the good part in people, always. But I came to the conclusion that I have to be more careful, and I have to be aware that monsters are not only in horror movies, are not only in books, that characters like this can really exist and seem to be normal and kind. Thank you very much for watching or listening. See you next time. Bye bye.